Oh, so Deb, you are much, much loved, obviously.
I don't actually see anything out there. They know that David Leibovitz is across town tonight, right?
They
the
don't
right
care.
space.
They don't even care. Well, I thought we might just plunge right in by asking you about a word that you've used to describe yourself, and it was actually in the subtitle of the first book, and that word is obsessive. And you have a particular kind of obsessive, and I wondered if you could describe that a little bit.
I would say for me, obsessive is that I want things to be a very, very particular way. And I feel like no detail is too small to get there. I feel like it's often in the details or in the lack of details that I get lost in some recipes. So I kind of, when I'm working on a recipe, I write down everything. I will write down the length of the carrots, the thickness of the carrots. I'm crazy. I just want to have the information there, just in case it turns out to be relevant later. And I just want things to taste a certain way. I was a picky eater.
You were.
So I still feel like it's inside me. I want things to be just one way or not another.
Well,
Just like a little totally sane cooking. It's fine. This is the way a normal sane person cooks, I know.
Well, so you were a picky eater. Well, what was your food culture when you were growing up?
Oh my goodness, what was my food culture? Is New Jersey a food culture?
Like, what did you eat growing up? What kind of cook was your mom?
Like fairly normal food, although my mom didn't know how to cook when she got married, and I know she told me the story that my dad decided he was going to teach her because he knew how to make like a stir fry and a couple things, and she was like, no. She didn't really care how she was going to learn, but it wasn't going to be that way, which I think is really funny. Anyway, so she's watching TV one day, and she sees the French chef on Channel 13, and she sees Julia Child, and she sees her making asparagus and omelets, and she was like, that's what I want to learn how to make. And so she bought Mastering the Art of French Cooking and kind of, I wouldn't say cooked her way through it, but she cooked her way through a lot of it. Those were sort of her. I did not grow up eating souffles. Then she had kids.
Very impressed.
No, then she had kids.
Okay.
I know, so I feel like there's definitely this French orientation, and then my mother's always loved California cuisine. She's always loved all the produce. We joke, I think my son figured this out, who's here tonight, that everything that Grandma Judy loves begins with an A. She likes asparagus and avocados, artichokes, apricots, arugula. I could keep going. It's kind of hilarious. So anyway, she likes all of her California vegetables. And so I think it was like the French and then the fresh vegetables and then just like everyday cooking. Most of the food is quite regular.
And did you?
My God, what high! Like I'm like, it's like, well, we have souffles and we have California produce. Mostly it was chicken, though. You know, mostly it was chicken. We had a lot of peanut butter and jelly too.
Well, yeah. Did you cook when you were a kid? Did you wander into the kitchen and help her out? Were you banned from the kitchen?
I don't really think I cooked that much growing up. I liked it. I wanted to, but my mother probably figured out that she was much better at it if she didn't have. I'm sure this doesn't sound familiar to anybody who has children, that sometimes it's a little faster to get it done if you do it yourself. I always liked to cook, and I think I'd help out a little bit, but it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't like, oh, she's going to be a cook one day at all. I don't think anyone thought that.
So when did that happen?
I think it happened when I, ostensibly grew up and realized that I didn't know how to make so many of the things that you just kind of assume you're going to, become an adult and know how to, roast a chicken or make meatballs or how to make an omelet or something, and I really hadn't done most of this cooking, and so I would just grab a recipe and I would say, wow, that could taste better. That didn't taste as good as it should. And that kind of nitpicking over recipes is really when I started the site. I wanted it to be like, okay, I've tweaked this and I like it this way. This is the way I want you to make it, or this recipe is perfect. Don't touch it at all. And that was that's really where the site got started. Pretty soon after.
Yeah, well, you do give people a great deal of guidance, which is part of what makes the head notes so rich and so fun, because you know exactly what you're going to get.
Haven't you been there before when you're in a recipe and you just want like just a little bit more detail, like, or is this right? Is this supposed to look curdled like this? Should I just order pizza? Like, is it over for me? Should I just quit? Like, I just want like to like, I feel like just throw me a rope, If you're somebody who worries a little bit, and gets, nervous in the kitchen. I think this is most people when you're trying something new. So a little bit of honesty about how things are going to go and which parts are not pleasant and which parts are going to look off. I wish more recipes had it.
Yeah, so sometimes a longer recipe could actually be a friendlier recipe, right?
It can be,
if it has more explanation in it. Now, this new book, Smitten Kitchen Every Day, you say in the introduction that it was not the book that you started out to write. And it was supposed to be about practical, real-life cooking when you're a busy mom with 2 kids like you are. And then something happened. You realized that wasn't working for you, and it didn't really reflect what you were actually noticing in your life. And could you talk a little bit about what actually happened and what this book is?
It always sounds so neat when you organize it into a few pages in the intro, but of course it was like real life, messy and more kind of like this. But it was that, when I found that when life got busier, I was looking at the cookbooks out there that are available to you, and I feel like on one pillar you have these very chefy at-home cookbooks, but they can be, some of them are great, but a lot of them are just really think that you have a prep cook or a dishwasher or it's just not the way we cook at home because they weren't developed for home kitchens.
They have 3 sub-recipes.
Everyone loves a sub-recipe, don't they? Love a sub-recipe. It's a Tuesday night, and you get to ingredient 12, and it turns out it's actually on page 214. That's fun. Oh, and it's like, you didn't jar it already? You didn't can it? So there's that. Again, that's not all of them. There are exceptions, but that is a lot of them, I feel like. And then on the other side, you have these like super busy cooking cookbooks, and it's not to say that there's nothing useful in them. We all pull recipes from them, but it didn't feel inspiring to me. I sort of feel like if you need something quick to do with chicken cutlets, like probably you could go on Google and find like 12 or 20 million ideas. You don't necessarily need a book of it when there's so much out there. I felt like if you're somewhere in the middle where you like to cook but don't have all the time in the world, there aren't as many books for people who are looking for enjoyment in cooking, or just food that inspires you. And that was the book in the middle that I wanted to write.
Yeah, you have this lovely line in the introduction about how, really excitement should lead you. That...
Why don't we talk about that more, though? Yeah. We're always like, what the food doesn't have, or how fast it gets you out of the kitchen, or how few ingredients it is, or like how many minutes. I feel like that's usually how recipes are defined, but what about when you're on your way home from work and you're tired and you think you don't want to cook, and then something like flips across your phone screen and you're like, ooh, that sounds so good. I'm going to go home and make that. And then you don't mind stopping at the grocery store and getting what you need. And when you pull it off, you feel that's the triumphant part. the like, I want to do a victory lap around the kitchen part. Yeah, I feel like that's I don't know, we don't talk about that, which is just how awesome you feel when you pull off a meal that you're excited about versus the whatever you usually make that you thought you were going to be doing that evening.
Right, yeah, the triumphant and unfussy new favorites is the subtitle. And, and you talk about, too, how if you find that recipe that sparks you like that, it has the power to, you say, completely change the course of a day.
I mean, it might be an ambitious outlook, but I can think of times it's done it, because in general, the less I felt like cooking and the less I thought I was going to, and the more excited I am when I actually do, and it actually works out. So again, it's not every night. I don't think that we need to be cooking 7 nights a week or we failed as human beings. I think it's just about sometimes it being the opposite of the bad part of your day. It's not just another piece of drudgery or another to-do task. It's something you want to do or that you're excited about. That's not obviously everyday cooking, but it is something that I would like to find on most days.
Yeah, I love that you call the introduction Against Drudgery. Sort of like there should be some kind of poster.
I
that
do,
goes with
I know.
that.
Why I feel like if we don't need more to-do lists, we already
Right.
have it. Eating should be a happier thing.
It definitely should be. And, actually, the Christian Science Monitor said when your first book came out, a great quote from their book review, the writer said, "Here's one way to rate cookbooks, by IQ, a measure not of their intelligence, but of their irresistibility quotient. The ratio of irresistible to less tempting recipes. On that scale, Deb Perelman's Smitten Kitchen cookbook scores at the Mensa level."
That might be the only Mensa invitation I've gotten. I'll take it.
Which is, which
That's very
then,
nice.
of course, made me wonder, how do you create those genius recipes? I mean, for instance, where do you get your inspirations?
You know what? I feel like here's where I'm supposed to say there's this book that I read that nobody else has, but it's not like that for me. I tend to go through phases of gathering, where I'm reading everything and a bunch of new cookbooks come out and I'm tearing through them, or the holiday issues of magazines, or I go out to a few new restaurants in a month and I get a bunch of ideas. And then there are other times where I'm just sifting through those ideas and trying to pull pieces out that I want to recreate. But it's really everywhere. I tend to grab from as many sources as I can. I like the idea of filling the well, and then when you're at a point where you kind of don't want to look at anything food related ever again, is the point where you want to start sifting through and see if there's anything that floats to the top.
Yeah,
It's a very abstract way
you've
of saying
mentioned
it.
you've mentioned sort of print sources. I mean, do you mainly turn to print for inspiration and real life, or you're roaming around?
Really, I feel like I get the print magazines, of course. I read the web versions of the magazines. I read the newspaper food sections. I read food blogs. I read anything I can get my hands on, basically. I get cookbooks, so it's a bit of everything. And then I'm lucky because I live in New York City and I get to go out and try new things and think, oh, I wonder if I could make this sauce at home and put it on something much simpler and kind of play around with ideas.
Yeah. Well, and then when it comes to the actual testing and perfecting, I know that the blueberry muffins in this book, I think you said something like you packed all muffin love into them. Like you made them 50 times or something like that?
I didn't mean to. I just got a little carried away. This doesn't always happen. This is not, I don't usually make things 50 times. What had happened, it kind of is a little bit from the first cookbook. I had gotten really stuck on the muffin recipe. I knew I wanted one in there and I wanted it to have poppy seeds in it, but I ended up making that one also 17 different ways. And I felt at the end of it that there was nothing new to say about muffins, that they're all roughly the same formula and they're roughly, I love that muffin. They're plum poppy seed muffins and I think that they're really good. But I just felt like, is there really anything that new to say about muffins? And then I wanted to make blueberry muffins because we had a lot of blueberries. And I started with this recipe I'd been using for years. I'm like, yes, there is more here. I just wondered if small tweaks you could get. We had a lot of blueberries that summer. I think that was the summer. It was the only thing my daughter ate, and so back then, and so we had a lot of blueberries. And so I just started playing around, trying to see if I could keep that sort of crisp lid and a really good muffin top that you want to pull off. And then also I like it when it has so many blueberries that it's barely tethered together as a muffin with cake. Okay, so this is this is for people who like a little bit of cake with their blueberries. And so after feeling like there's nothing else to say, it was really fun to kind of keep tweaking it.
Yeah.
And I was making it in mini batches. We didn't have 30 dozen. And this was also the summer that I realized that, because I always feel like muffins are really only good on the first day and then they're not that great, but this is when I realized that even a 1 or 2 day old one, if you split it and just run it briefly under the broiler, they're almost better. Almost.
Yeah.
Just want to throw that out there in case you feel like maybe I don't need to make 12 muffins tonight. Do.
Well, and are you ever sort of driven by what's trending, like what's getting good SEO online? Does that factor into any of your decisions, or are you in your own universe of exploration and obsessiveness? And
I'm untouched by the world. I go into my writing lair. I put my noise-canceling headphones on. I don't pay a lot of attention to SEO because for some reason, like as soon as I hear the letters, like this buzzing sound, like just, I don't know, some of the web stuff. What I like, I like seeing what's out there. I like seeing everything that's out there. So instead of picking one or two things, I'm more like, look at everything and then just, as I said, like, kind of take it all in and then push it away. I love those hands and pans videos. I mean, I don't always want to cook what they're cooking, but they are so fun to watch. I like it all.
Yeah.
But I think what's really important is that you don't feel like you need to do something some way it's already being done. I don't think anyone's going out there saying what we need is more faceless hand videos. Like we definitely don't have enough of those. No, if it's how you want to express your cooking, it's great. But I think, when people are starting off, there's really this pressure to look around and see what's working. And that's exactly, I think, the opposite of what works. What works is doing something that came from your own mind, that you have a vision, and isn't too influenced by others.
Yeah. Well, and also part of what's wonderful about your recipes are the way you name them. Sometimes just something that could be kind of ordinary, like maybe white beans with sage or something, in your hands becomes, pizza beans. And
that was marketing. I was marketing. I was marketing to a 7-year-old actually. He was 5 at the time, and I had made these pizza. It was called braised white beans in a tomato and vegetable sauce. It had a very complex, very chefy name. I had to impress strangers, and my son, who's here tonight. So I have to watch my words, because there will be a quiz later. But he said he didn't want to eat white beans. He didn't think he was going to like it. And I said, it's tomato sauce with cheese on top. It's pizza beans. They're pizza beans. And somehow putting the word pizza in there did the trick.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I mean, it really don't need to be 5 for the word pizza to do the trick, though. I feel like that's really all ages. So it was just marketing. It's the same dish.
Well, it repeats itself through the book. I mean, you make things sound so wonderful. And also, of course, the recipe head notes, because you are the queen of head notes. And even something that, you need to make, especially if you have a family, something like, broccoli melts, for instance. In the quality of your head note, you just point out what's extraordinary about them.
You.
And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about those broccoli melts. What makes them, what? Everybody needs to make these.
I think everyone needs to make these. Very bossy too. See, that's the other thing. You need to make these. That and the blueberry muffins. I understand if you have to go. Go home, make some broccoli melts and blueberry muffins. It's the funny thing with broccoli is that I feel like there was about 10 years, or there were many years on the site where there wasn't a single broccoli recipe. And then I had a kid, and I don't know what it is with kids, but they like broccoli. And all of a sudden we were buying broccoli, 3 times a week, and we always had broccoli around. We always had leftover broccoli, and it was an agreeable vegetable. It was like the vegetable everybody agreed to eat. And so all of a sudden I went from 0 broccoli recipes on the site to probably a good 15 or 20 in a couple-year period. And the broccoli melts were one of them. And it's just this idea of you take just some par-cooked broccoli, you chop it up really well, and then you mix it with a lot of very flavorful things like chili flakes to taste, garlic, lemon zest, there's some pecorino in there, a good amount of salt and pepper, even some lemon juice if you don't mind the discoloration. And you end up with this. It's so flavorful, you could just pretty much eat that from the bowl, but for the melt, you put it on a piece of toast with a slice of provolone under it, and then you run it under the broiler. So it's like a tuna melt, but with vegetables.
But it's like it's double cheesed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to keep it real. The pecorino is mostly for the salty kick, but it's just comfort food. It's comfort food for broccoli eaters.
You are also queen of the recipe mashup, I have to say. I mean, everything biscuits. Brilliant idea. Granola biscotti,
Thank
something called the sushi takeout Cobb salad.
Okay, that's sort of a mouthful, but yeah, I know. That was a tough thing to name. I didn't.
But it makes such sense. Everything that you get in sushi, why not just put it in a Cobb salad sort of situation? You know, it's sort of like, and actually tomorrow on Sunsets, we're going to do a Facebook Live segment with Deb, and you can watch her making one of these mashups. It's the sticky toffee date waffle.
Oh my God.
Can you talk about how your brain came up with this idea?
I had actually never had sticky toffee pudding before. Oh. I know everyone's like sighing. That's exactly how it is. The first time you have it, you just realize like that everything before that was actually terrible and sad. It's so good, but the thing that blew me away about it is that it's actually, there's blended dates in there. It's not like, it's a fruit cake. It's healthy. There's fruit in there. It's basically a salad. Anyway, but I found it, so I thought it would be fun to apply that to a waffle. I feel like it's a good holiday dessert, a good holiday brunch. But what I found when I was making the waffle is, with some tweaking, that since dates are so sweet, that I could actually remove most of the, I think there's actually no extra sugar in there. It's fully sweetened by the dates, which is good because next you're gonna make a toffee sauce, and you'll be really glad there's no sugar inside the waffle. So the cool thing is that you can make the waffles, and they're pretty wholesome, I guess. I don't know, it's tough to call waffles wholesome, but it's a good weekday thing. You could make a bunch of them, keep them in the freezer, or if you want to like do it up for the holidays, it's a very good sponge for toffee sauce, which is basically like a salted butterscotch thing with brown sugar and butter and vanilla and then a pinch. It's gross. No, who would want to eat that? It's awful.
Yeah, it's, well, I know what I'm going to be making next weekend for my family. Now let's talk about the blog for a little bit specifically. You have 7 million visitors a month, something like that at this point. And there are hundreds of comments and questions on every post. And as you have pointed out in your earlier book, this is when your obsessiveness really comes in handy, because you actually answer all those questions. You really do. You look at them every day?
I do. I mean, this month doesn't count. I've been a little bit busy, but I try to. It's for me though. I like to see how it's going for everybody else, but it's really useful for me to hear what questions come up and where people have problems. And sometimes I learn a lot. You know, somebody will suggest a swap or point out that 2 steps, if you combine them, it's actually still quite good. And I find it really helpful. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to hear everything that's going on in the comment section. So I find it really helpful. And I also think it's sort of cool because, I mean, I don't know, if you have a question about a recipe in a cookbook, like what are you going to do? But in the website, you know, if somebody's actually trying to respond, like how cool that you can get the ear of somebody, and maybe if I'm there at the right time, I can sort of walk you through it.
Yeah, help you in real time. In fact, I was impressed by, you have a section on your site about your first book, and there are all, you know, not many actually, things that people have written to you about in the book. You know, what about this? I needed guidance on this. And you've answered all those people. It's just so nice.
I actually just don't do much else though. Like this is why it takes me 5 years. This is why it takes me 5 years to write a book, and it takes other people 2 years, because but I like it though. I feel like it makes me a better recipe writer, because I have so much more. I can tell you, people will suddenly suggest that I make something. I'm like, well, that wouldn't work because of A, B, C, D, and I can list off the reasons that I know it's just not going to go over well, that I would reject it. Like it has fennel in it. I don't know, fennel is so, I'm not saying I won't make things with fennel, but I wouldn't make things with fennel and then be surprised that all the comments were, but I hate fennel.
Fair enough.
Can I make this without fennel? What else can I use for the fennel? I made this without the fennel, and it turned out it was just salad dressing because it was a fennel salad, and I took the fennel out. Sorry.
Well, actually, the very first recipe in this book is kind of an homage to one of your readers. The deli rye English muffin. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I was at an event kind of like this, in the last leg of my book tour for the last book, and somebody asked me where I get recipe ideas from, and I'm like, as usual, I'm like taking like 15 minutes to get to it, but I'm like, kind of just from wherever. Like this morning, I was thinking it would be so cool if I didn't have to choose between like English muffins and rye bread toast, and then someone's like, you should go make that. Now you can start your second book. And so I felt like obligated to make it happen, and also it was very delicious getting it there. So this is really just for me, for people who wish that English muffins could taste like rye bread sometimes. It was really, it's for me. I hope you guys like it too, but I made it for me.
And I know that this is going to be a hard question to answer, so just whatever pops to mind first.
Looking at the curtain, guys.
What's one of the recipes that people have responded to most, and why do you think it's been so loved?
Oh, see, I like the way you were assuming like a lot of response meant it was a good recipe, and not I think, because I feel like there's recipes like the chocolate peanut butter cake on the site that are really, really popular, but of course, it's chocolate and peanut butter. It's always going to be like prom queen of cakes. But then there's my husband's mom's apple charlotka, and I was so surprised. She doesn't call it apple charlotka, she calls it apple thing. She's like, she doesn't bake, she's such a good cook, and she cooks every day. She's like a much better cook than me, and she's a much more, I'm like, I cook 3 days, so I'm good, but she will like cook every day. But she doesn't bake. The only thing she makes is what she calls apple thing. I made apple thing. I just thought, it's actually a very lean cake. It's just, eggs and sugar and a lot of apples, and I thought it would be maybe interesting in January when people are when they want dessert, it had like hundreds and hundreds of comments at the end of the week, and I didn't expect it at all. Even to this day, I don't know. I mean, I love it too, but I was really surprised by the level of feedback, and I think it's because it's so simple. You don't need to plan. It doesn't need to be like, I'm making a cake for an occasion. You can just make apple thing. You just make apple thing because you want to make an apple thing.
Gosh, well, you do have a way with apples. I've just made the apple crisp.
You did?
Oh, so delicious. Yay. And I love the way you go totally overboard with the crumb.
Sorry.
It's all about, there's so much crumb on there.
Are you saying you're not supposed to have a 1-to-1 ratio of fruit to crumbs? Is that not how crisps are done?
It's perfect. It's exactly what you want in an apple crisp.
It just means that when it's in the fridge and your family keeps picking pieces off, and by my family, I mean, family. Anyway, they just it means that there's still plenty left.
Well, and the other thing that I love about the blog is the whole segment that you have on there called Disasters. And there's a little list. I'm going to just read some of the titles and see if you can talk about maybe one of them.
Boy.
Okay, there's...
We're airing all of my recipe grievances now.
There's caustic confit.
Oh, that is a terrible recipe.
There's flan flop.
That's lack of skill on my part.
Okay, there's over the top irksome quiche.
It was just I made peace with it later. I did. It took like 5 or 7 years, but
because when you have failures like this, you just attack it and make it better, right? Don't you?
These days, I tend to do less, and most of the recipes will be a story about how it flopped and then how I fixed it, because I found that more editorially useful on the site than just saying this didn't work and I'm done here. I'm gone. So that's what I would do in the beginning, but I think these days it would be like, I've always been really bad at making flan, here's some examples, and here's how I got it right. I haven't written that post yet, but I have some ideas.
And then I have to ask you, because it's a favorite food of mine, the roasted baby artichoke failure.
Oh, that I know it was that one. Okay. So I don't listen to any recipe that says you can just take baby artichokes and put them on a grill. It's not true. They must be steamed or parboiled first. They're too rubbery. They have to be they really have to be twice cooked in some way. You could cook them fully through in a steamer or boiling them, but if you want to grill them, you can't. Even the babies, you have to boil them first. But I didn't know that at the time. I just expected the recipe to know it for me, and it didn't.
And they were like little erasers or something?
Yeah, they were bitter. They were bitter erasers.
Oh. Yeah, tragic. And then the photography. Jordan talked a little bit about your photography, and it is so beautiful. And the New York Times once said that your appetite is palpable through the lens, which I thought was so well put. But interestingly, in this book you say, I think it's in the introduction, you say, I am in most foods on Team Ugly Food. What did you mean by that?
I meant that I don't have a lot of patience for food styling. I really just want to show the food the way it looks. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you all of my secrets, which is that I don't believe in food styling. I think it's great if somebody else wants to do it, but in general, I want, this is our food, this is our dinner. I'd like to get 5 or 10 pictures of it and then go eat it. I'm not trying to like spend an hour, you know. So my theory is that most food photos that we think look good, probably most photos, it's not the food, it's the light. And I feel like well-lit photos that have like a good strong shadow or like clear and they're crisp and they're well-lit makes it seem appetizing. I mean, obviously the content helps too, but I mean, I remember one time I was seasoning short ribs and I'm like, well, I can't take a picture of this. I mean, nobody needs to see like raw short ribs. And it ends up being, I mean, again, obviously you have to like short ribs, but I actually think it's a very pretty photo because it's the light, it's the, anyway, so I don't think it's the food as much as it's the light. So my only food secret is that I just try to shoot by a window and try to get some natural light on it. That's it.
It seems like there's one other thing you do too, though, it's that somehow your photos focus on the thing that you love about that food. And you can really tell when you look at the photos that you love the way the spoon made the trails in the gravy. And you can see those beautiful trails and how thick the gravy is. And
I shoot on auto, by the way.
You shoot on what?
I shoot on auto.
On auto.
I don't know why in my early years I felt like I couldn't admit that. Now I'm coming free with it and I feel much better now. I shoot on auto. Yeah, I just want to make it clear. I know what real food photographers do and I do not do those things. So that's all.
It works. You know?
Thank you. I'm glad it's working. I'm going to try to keep pulling it off, pulling off this hack.
Yeah, because it's, it's really, you said I think you talk a little bit about photography on the site, and you talk about how the photo should tell the story of your love for it, essentially, that's, you're finding what you love about it as you take the shot.
I think that the best photos really do tell a story. And I also think if you're taking a photo of something and you're not happy with it, it's because the photo isn't saying what you want to say about it. It's a communication breakdown. So I feel like if there's something you think is really cool about whatever you're shooting, that's really, trying to figure out how to, close the communication gap between what you think is cool about it and what you can get the camera to, tell about it is, but I think that's true of writing too, where it's about this, like when you don't like the way something sounds, it's because it's not the way it sounds in your head, and the more you write, the easier it is to close that gap between how you want it to sound and how it is sounding.
Yeah, until it's expressed. Yeah. And then I think I'll just ask you one last little question, because I know you all probably have lots of questions for Deb and want to ask her about your favorite recipes. And I am curious to know what a day in your life looks like. Like, when do you get up? When do you bustle into your tiny kitchen, which now is bigger, from what I understand?
A little bigger,
it's not as small as it used to be. New York, what does your day look like these
Well, my
days?
husband's here too, so I have to tell the truth. So, because normally I would be like, well, I get up and I pack lunch boxes. Like, you would hear this booing from the back of the room. I would say a normal weekday it should be that we would both wake up and both together do the lunch boxes and breakfast and whatever, but it's just not honest. My husband took it over at some point, and he's really amazing. And I think I was pregnant and like really tired in the morning. And so he started doing the lunch boxes, and then I was like nursing, and I was a little busy in the morning, and so he took over breakfast, and then I wasn't doing either, but don't tell him, because I'm not doing either now. But yeah, so my husband handles a lot of the morning routine with the kids. Then we divide and conquer. We each take them. Their schools are in separate directions, so we switch off who takes whom, and then. After that, if I'm being super good, I will go to the gym for a bit. I'm not always that good. And then I go through my phases. And then what I really try to do at the end of each day, because this relates here, is to kind of organize what I'd like to cook the next day and have some sort of idea so I can write my grocery list. So I try to get my groceries in the morning. I basically just try to get everything done in the morning, and then I use the rest of the morning to, it would be if I was updating the site or if I was writing or trying to respond to emails. That's sort of the couple hours that I have that I can be useful in front of a computer. And then around 1 o'clock, like my brain just melts down and I can't write or type sentences anymore, and that's when I start working on recipes. That would be a typical day, and that usually pushes us right through till dinner time. So hopefully one of them turns into dinner, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I know what I am making for Thanksgiving.
What are you making?
And I'm going to make this amazing. And maybe you guys, as you ask questions, you might want to talk about which of Deb's recipes, if you're coming to the microphone anyway, you might suggest to the crowd to make for Thanksgiving. But I'm going to make your chocolate pecan slab pie.
Good choice.
And it looks...
I'm making it too, by the way.
You are.
But I can't even believe that it's like a week.
You guys can't really see this, but just look at the beauty.
I'm
It's
a big
like
fan of all-purpose Thanksgiving desserts. I mean, there's so many things that we like to eat on Thanksgiving, and we only have one stomach, so I love the idea of combining things.
Yeah.
And so this is like you get your chocolate and you get your pecan pie.
And it's a slab.
Yes, the slab is because I don't know how your families are, but I don't think I've ever seen a Thanksgiving with less than like 12 people, and we're not even from a particularly large family. It's just that if somebody's cooking, mouths appear who are hungry. And I find that it always gets large, and a pie serves 8 people. Could you imagine spending all that time working on pie, toasting the pecans, making it caramel, and then everyone just gets a little sliver? Like, that's very sad. So I like slabbing the pie so you can get many, many more servings. And I also like the proportions. I feel like you get a little more texture out of it.
Yeah, more crispy, crunchy
corners,
crust,
more edges.
corners, yeah. Well, with that, it might be time for your questions. And I think Jordan is going to go around with the microphone and ask them. Is that right? Do I have the procedure?
You can raise
done
your
right?
hand and I will come to you with a microphone. Becky has one on the other side as well. The first question is here in the middle.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I just made your pumpkin cheesecake with the sour cream on top, and it's delicious.
Yay.
My husband wants more graham cracker all
Okay.
over it. How does that sound?
Terrible.
Great.
That would be awful. Who would like such a thing?
And then my mom wants more pumpkin flavor. How do we?
Interesting.
I was thinking of upping the spices.
Does she want pumpkin pie?
No, I want
Hi.
pumpkin cheesecake that tastes more pumpkin-y.
You know, I feel like it's not as simple as just adding more of the canned pumpkins. I feel like you'd have to play around with the proportions too. Like, if you want to add more of the softness of pumpkin, you'd probably want to add another egg to, but again, this is just, I don't want to ruin your Thanksgiving, but that would be the way I would try it. I would look at the amount that's in there and, maybe add, add another half cup and then add an egg to make sure it sets. I think fairly safely that should work, but please don't leave me a mad comment on Thanksgiving if it doesn't. I'm trying to make this easy.
We have another question over here on the right.
Well, it's maybe a little bit more of a comment. Deb, I feel you're so sweet and humble, so I feel compelled to tell you how important you are to everybody here. My kids grew up with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
In my kitchen, and I have a 20-year-old who is now out in the world vegetarian, and he has to cook for stuff to taste good, and I blame that on you. So.
Thank you.
We have a question on your left.
Hi, I'm Gretchen, and I think I've been reading you since your Smitten Kitten days back on iVillage. Is that you? That's you, right?
There was a Smitten blog on iVillage. It was not Smitten Kitten. That's like a slightly different website, but I'll let you work that out. with Google. So it was just Smitten before it was Smitten Kitchen. Yeah, so thank you, though. I'm so happy I haven't run you off yet, or though maybe this did the trick. Sorry.
Well, what I really wanted to ask you is that I love your recipes, your food is great, but what I really love is your writing. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about doing other forms or styles of writing, whether essay or more sort of formal memoir or fiction, because I'd read it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. I haven't thought about it at all. I don't know. A memoir, don't you have to have like an interesting life? My life, I mean, aside from like this, it's actually very normal. I don't know. Maybe one day, but it wasn't. It's never. I've never thought about writing anything else. Thank you.
Question all the way in the back.
I will now think about it nonstop, though. Like, should I?
Hi, my name is Maggie. So a couple years ago, your pecan pie recipe came out with golden syrup. And of course, that weekend, I went down to figure out how to get the ingredients, and I found a local British store who sold golden syrup. And I went in and he was like, "Oh, are you from the blog?" Oh, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
The lady called me.
This is what we should give as door prizes.
Yeah. But one thing I was just so impressed. He was like, "Oh, yeah, she called me. She warned me that I should up my stock of how much I should be carrying." Is that something you do often?
I don't think I have. I don't think I did. I feel like I would, but I didn't. If I was telling people to go to a very specific store in New York, I might call them first to see if they had it. But no, that sounds like a very nice thing. I should just take credit for it, but I don't think it was me. I would like to be that nice of a person.
The next question is on your left.
Hi, Deb. So maybe it's the millennial in me, but I really love your Instagram stories.
Thank you.
I'm really... they're so funny. And then even when I do cook one of your recipes, I always tag like @Deb or @Smitten Kitchen. And you always comment back. And it's the most amazing thing. I like screenshot it and text it to all my friends.
Thank you.
Even when I feel like it's a failure, you support me. And it just really increases the connection that everyone's talked about with your blog. And I just had a question. How do you see your Instagram and your social media kind of relating to your blog? Do you see yourself going in one direction or the other, or do they complement each other? Just how do you feel about social media, I guess?
I think they should complement each other. I think the Instagram stories are, they're fun. I mean, if I'm not doing a lot of things, they'll be quiet for weeks. And then if I'm doing stuff I think is worth sharing or relates to food, or it's been super fun since I'm book touring and going to all these cities, and I wouldn't normally go to the site and be like, by the way, I'm in this city today and I had a milkshake. Like, it's not necessarily good blog content. It's sort of fun to be able to share the behind the scenes of what's going on. And also it's been super helpful in crowdsourcing, like where to go. I'm so spoiled that I can say where should I go to lunch, and then have like many ideas that I like actually delete the question after a few minutes. But it's awesome. So I like it. I think they should be complementary, though. I don't think I could do on the site what I do on Instagram. You know, I couldn't write. I mean, you could maybe write something longer, but the recipe's never going to be properly formatted or anything, or searchable, or even hard to get to a link. But I like it. I think I've always liked Instagram because it's very visual. I probably don't use Twitter as much, although with 280 characters, I'm free. Maybe I'll start using it more. I think they should all work together. I think if you are starting out and you're trying to figure out what to focus on, it's important not to get... I think you should figure out what your main thing is that you love and that you want to be known for, and don't get too distracted by the other stuff, because it doesn't matter if you're doing all of your social media and all of your Facebooking and this, if you would like your site to grow, if you're not putting time into it. So it really is, you've got to pick what your center is and work on that first, and everything else should go with it.
Next question on your left. Oh, whoops, sorry, up there.
Question over here on your right.
Hi, Deb. My name's Margaret. First, I want to say that thank you for sharing your love of sprinkles. I have now adopted that, the funfetti cookies I make for all of my friends' birthdays, and I love them.
Aw, thank you.
I was wondering if you had any advice for cooking with persimmons. I tried making a persimmon compote the other day, and it didn't work out. So I was wondering if you had any recommendations.
It's really funny because I was on a radio show this morning, and first I was asked about crabs, which I've almost never cooked, and it's just not, I mean, there are parts of the East Coast where it's really big, but not. And then I was asked about
Rabbit.
Oh, thank you. How to keep rabbit from getting too dry. I have never cooked a rabbit before. And then I was asked about persimmons, and I've cooked with them like 2 or 3 times ever. So anyway, I think maybe I'm in the wrong coast. I don't know. So it's just very funny that you asked that. And I haven't cooked with them enough. I do know that we get them in New York now, but it's just not as big of a thing. So I'm going to work on that. I'm gonna do better for you.
Margo, do you want to jump in as the food editor for Sunset Magazine?
Yeah, you probably are.
Well, we sort of revel in persimmons and Dungeness crab, actually, because we're here on the West Coast, so these are topics we cover a lot.
Your avocados and your
Meyer lemons, all of that.
Rubbing it in.
Sorry.
You should see what passes for an avocado in New York. It would make you cry. Anyway, sorry. I want to hear what you want. I want to hear more about persimmons.
Yeah. So and actually this morning you had a great idea, or you remembered something that you'd heard about persimmon butter, which I think sounds delicious.
I feel like
great
it goes
idea.
really well with the texture, this idea of cooking it down. I have a peach butter on the site, which is the same idea, but what I think is what's really important is trying not to clutter it with other flavors. I think the best thing about butter, like fruit butters, is that they really magnify the flavor. So, I mean, I know with apple butter, you usually have a ton of cinnamon and spice, but
Right.
I also think it's sort of cool that you could really make it taste very, very appley, because all you're doing is just cooking it. You're just cooking it until it's like nice and spreadable. And it's also good for people like me who are really not jam makers or canners, and anyone can do it at home. You just have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and the other thing you said this morning was taking fuyu persimmons, the ones that look like tomatoes, the harder ones, and just slicing them up for salad. They're terrific in salads.
They are
just
good in
delicious.
salads.
Yeah.
That is the full extent of what I've done with persimmons ever. Like that's it. Like it's the end of my persimmons. But I'm going to fix that.
Thank you. The next question is on your left.
Hi, Deb. My name's Jennifer. I had a 2-part question. My first question is, what is your kids' all-time favorite dinner that you make for them?
Okay.
And then the second part is, have you considered making a cookbook dedicated to kid-friendly recipes, like things that you as a mom make? Because quite honestly, there's not a lot of them out there. I can think of 2 cookbooks off the top of my head that's dedicated to like moms make these recipes for their kids, and seems like your thing.
All right. My kids like pizza, pasta, and cake. They are normal children. There's nothing wrong with them. One of my kids is a pretty good eater, and he'll eat more things. I like a lot of the things in the book were things. I don't talk about the other kid. I don't know where to get started. She ate a blueberry, I think, in 2016. A lot of the stuff that ends up in this book, though, were not your usual stuff that you would expect to go over great with kids, but it all worked, which was for me kind of the delight. And also, there's this kale Caesar in there, which was actually the thing that got my kids to like salad, because neither of them, well, my daughter would sort of chew on leaves sometimes, but no, she would eat lettuce, but somehow this dressing just is sort of that magical, and it's really like they will both eat salad. And I'm sorry, like that's why I started with the pizza, pasta, and cake, because I don't, like, could you imagine a food writer being like, my children love salad with kale in it? Like, you sound like you're really bragging, but it was one of those surprise things that I hadn't expected to go over so well. No, to the second question. I do not want to write a cookbook for kids. And the reason is that I want my kids to eat my food, and not the other way around. And I know that sounds mean. I'm willing to make some tweaks. I'm not going to cover it in hot sauce and then like wonder what. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I hope that the books reflect that, though. Again, it's not perfect, but like certainly this book has been, I can tell you which things were, I do usually mention like my child would not touch this, but we loved it more for us kind of thing. No, I think I feel like the fastest way to get drained in cooking is to cook what everybody, like I feel like when I talk to mom friends or dad friends, if they do the cooking at home, as soon as you've got one kid who can demand one meal and another kid who can demand another meal, and it's like it really stinks to cook. It stops being fun. So I am much more interested in taking the things that I want to cook and finding ways to make them more friendly to kids. And that Cobb salad is actually a good example. I found, I basically can verb anything, and now I'm I've been cobbing salads, which is just this idea of taking something with a lot of ingredients and sort of separating them out so everybody so the person who doesn't want this in their salad or this touching this can work it out in their own bowl. I also like doing it with classic Cobb ingredients, and then, you can also have more of what you like. But I love that idea, and I've been doing a lot more like assemble your own type meals to try to get the kids involved, where you, like the street cart chicken, where you have everything kind of separate and then you make your own platter. I think it's more fun. And then again, you don't have to not make something because there's somebody who hates yogurt sauce or something. Kind of monster, I don't even know.
Question over here on your right.
Hi, my name is Lena. Yours was one of the first food blogs I discovered, and it's still the first place I go to whenever I want to cook something. I was also a fellow picky eater as a kid, and I was wondering if there are any ingredients that to this day you will not include in your recipes.
These used to be my secrets. Like once a year, somebody would email me and be like, I've noticed you don't have any beet recipes on the site. Or, how do you not have any salmon? And then I'd be like, it's kind of amazing how rarely that happens. I think when you cook, people only notice what you do cook. I know I'm in the West Coast and I'm saying that I don't love salmon, but I don't. I can't. I tried. I know you're gonna send me. I'm gonna have so many salmon recipes in my inbox tomorrow. If I only just made it this way, here it comes. Beets are not my favorite thing, which is funny because my husband's Russian, and I know his mother-in-law. I mean, I won't not eat them though. It's not. What else? God, let me think. I don't know. I was always a really picky kid, so actually I could probably more easily list the things that I would eat. But there's a lot of things that I just don't like, that don't move me. But a lot of the cooking I've done on the site in the last 12 years has been, I thought I didn't like chicken breasts, and here are a few techniques in which I actually really think that it's the best way to cook them is with this meat. So my favorite thing is to take things that I don't think I like and find a way to make myself like them. I just haven't succeeded with those two things yet. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is on your left.
Hi, Deb. My name is Jen, and thank you for providing so many recipes that no matter what I make of yours, it's always delicious. This is sort of a request, not a question.
Okay.
But can you update more recipes to use a multi-pot or Instapot?
Please. Yes, you got it. What I've been doing is I did get one. Purely reader service. I got one because I'd heard one or two things about it in the last 5 years. Like maybe you've heard. I bought one. It took me a couple months to open it up. I've made a bunch of things in it. I feel like a slow cooker, it's good at certain things and it's not great at others. It's not that it won't work. It's more what you want to get out of it. I feel like if you're trying to look for a meal where you can throw a bunch of things in a pot, come home, throw a bunch of things in a pot, like, chicken, rice, vegetables, and some seasoning. Go take your shoes off, help your kid with their homework. 15 minutes later, it's ready to go. It's great for that because you don't have to stand over the stove. I feel it excels in cooking at, obviously if you're trying to braise meat, it helps if you really want it like falling apart, done. I love it for dried beans. There's a black bean soup recipe on the site way back in the archives that I make in the Instapot now, and it's 30 minutes. The cooking time is 30 minutes, about 25 even, plus 10 to 15 to saute the ingredients. I mean, it's pretty great to be able to come home and make a black bean soup from a bag of dried beans in 45 minutes. And I like making stock in it, or bone broth if you want to charge a lot for it. The kids call it bone broth. I think it's really good at that, and it's really nice that it takes less time to get way more flavor. I've made the grandma-style chicken noodle soup in there. And actually, one thing I found when I was doing that is there's a couple steps where you just want to simmer it for a bit. And I actually thought it was pretty cool that you can do that in the Instapot. You can actually bring a pot of water to boil, which is pretty cool. You can't do that with a lot of other multi-cookers. Oh, and also, I've never given a short answer in my life. I was visiting America's Test Kitchen when I was up in Boston. It was really nice that they invited me and let me walk around, because the last time I was there, I stole some fried chicken. It's a different story. But they invited me back, and they are working on recipes for their own multi-cooker cookbook, and this actually relates back to the flan flop. They were making flan in there, and they had me sample too. They were so good. So perhaps that's the answer to my flan woes. It was so good. I don't know if that was the first thing that would come to mind with it, but do know at some point in the next year or two, they're going to have a cookbook out that might be worth it for the flan recipe alone.
Question over here on the right.
Hello, and welcome to San Francisco. So I think it's your husband that's a chocolate peanut butter lover, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm not, but I'm not going to like drive across town for it or anything.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
So I have a question. When is his birthday?
August 10th. Why do I keep looking at his feet? To me, like, am I in trouble? Did I say it right?
Are you gonna make something new for him? Because I always look forward to his birthday because there's something.
I see what you did there. Well, I can promise it here because I think he had to go. So I can say whatever I want. I try to.
Intentionally.
The number of homemade birthday cakes we got vastly plummeted after we had children, because children's birthdays are like a month-long affair that require multiple desserts and parties. And then when you have two, you're so winded from it that you don't want to, it takes a while. But every so often, I pull it together for us grown-ups too. And yes, I would like to make something new, and I have some ideas.
Okay, good. I'm excited.
What?
I'm excited then.
Okay, I thought you were like, what are they? I'm like, let me tell you.
No,
but I have to get to work.
Me, tell.
I had this, I don't know, it's like a marshmallowy peanut butter thing with a salted peanut caramel and then some chocolate too. I had something like this, like a distant cousin of it at a bakery, and now I gotta get home and start working on it. I have some ideas.
Where you're going, but his birthday's not until August. So
yeah, so by then I should have it together.
Between them.
I'm gonna get it, August. Don't tell him though, because in case it's a busy month.
Can I just add that there is a brilliant cake explosion at the back of this book. It's like so many cakes packed, cakes every which way.
Yeah,
and plus you have 4 dessert chapters in here.
It's
incredible.
I just, I think it's important to be prepared. But the site is fairly divided between sweet and savory. The book is a little bit more savory, but I like it to show up. It's probably about the same balance as the site.
Okay, yeah. Just when you buy this book, you will see in it the party cake builder. And it is just how to do all these incredible things, basically using some, the same basic recipe, but then or a few basic recipes, but then all these different ways to customize them. And it's just beautiful.
All one bowl cakes, and I just feel like my theory is that most people are making birthday cakes at 2:00 in the morning the day of the kid's birthday, because you thought it was going to be real quick and you'd start it after their bedtime, and it never goes quickly. And I wanted it to be very, very, very simple, like high reward cakes though. They're not single layer, or you can just stack them, lots of frosting, lots of sprinkles.
Yeah, I love the one bowl. You use one bowl as a verb.
Yeah, I know. I verb a lot of things that aren't verbs. I don't know why you think I should write more. It's just one of those things that when I think of the unfussy part, we make these assumptions about cooking that you have to sift the dry ingredients and do the dry, wet, dry. And it's not that doesn't make a good cake, but these were all times that I made it without those steps and found the cake to be lacking in no way. Maybe the crumb would be 10% different without it, but I don't think anyone's eating that cake thinking, my goodness, if only she had sifted her dry ingredients and folded them carefully in. Nobody who deserves to eat cake you made would think like that.
Question over here on the right. Hi, Deb. I have a question that's not very actionable or helpful for anyone, but I'm just super curious.
Okay.
If you have a team that supports you in the business of Smitten Kitchen, do you have people behind the scenes that are helping make this all happen?
No. No, I don't. It's like this weird thing. I used to think it was fine, but recently when I started, when I've answered this, people are just like, their jaws drop. This is why I'm very slow at everything. I don't know. I always say I'm gonna like hire somebody and then I don't do it. I have help. I don't plan my own book tours. Like my publishers take care of that. I'm not booking all these. I would never leave my apartment if I had to book it myself. I have a little bit of help with my newsletter, but no, it's because nobody can write for me. Nobody can answer emails for me. Nobody, so it's really tricky. I've never been very good at figuring out what I could outsource on the site. I did move my site over to WordPress. I mean, it was already using their software, but I had a tech guy sort of managing it, and now I'm in with WordPress VIP. So it's nice to have people kind of managing the back end now, but no, pretty much the day-to-day of the site is all me, and it's not necessarily the best thing. Don't take business advice from me, because I'd probably be able to do a lot more things if I could figure out how to outsource more, but when the site and your work is your voice, it's hard for me to figure out what I can outsource.
We have time for one more question. I'll be in the front.
Hi, Deb. My name is Daphne. I have a blog question. Your blog was one of the things that inspired me to start my own blog about 5 years ago, and it's a little tiny blog, and I pour my heart into this blog. I'm super obsessive, like you described before, and I was wondering if you have any advice for how to launch blogs into the world so that more people are reading them.
I think it's great to be consistent, I think one of the best things is that when somebody shows up at your site don't underestimate drive-by traffic. I think that's the entire reason my site exists. I've never advertised it. I've never bought an ad. I'm so uncomfortable talking about my site even now, as you I'm squirming in my seat. I feel like it has to stand on its own. And so keep working on making everything there good, so when somebody stops by because of a Google result, or they followed a link from somewhere else, or maybe they found your Instagram and you're linking back there all the time, they don't want to leave. Just think of that person who stops by and it's not because somebody told them about it, it's just they just landed there and they want to stay. And I feel like if you can make it welcoming for that person, people come back and maybe they tell a friend about it. Thank you.